Currently, we have a Michigan Education Savings Program that allows for tax advantage savings going towards higher education. What we have before us is what I'm referring to as an enhanced Michigan Education Savings Program, which essentially expands these savings provisions and tax advantage to K through 12, through vocational education, as well as higher ed. It solves multiple problems related to education that I'm sure we're all aware of. And first and foremost, it addresses funding. It provides a mechanism by providing student-specific accounts. It provides a mechanism that's been calculated to provide as much as an average of $3,000 per year in additional third-party funding. And it's based on something that's already happening in some of our poorest communities. Number two, it addresses employee shortage. So one of the things that this encourages with these student-specific savings accounts is that it opens a door to work-study programs, and companies will contribute as much as $7,000 per year towards high school students that participate in a work-study program that not only gives the student valuable experience, but also provides employers with an opportunity to evaluate potential future employees. And number three, it allows parents to stretch existing dollars due to the tax advantage nature of the account. So right now, we had a while back, we considered legislation around bake sales. Well, why do you have bake sales in the schools? Because there's a lot of expenses that happen in public education right now that are not covered by our foundation allowance, not covered by our MIPSERS payments, they're not covered by any of that, and parents are having to pull money out of the pocket to go off and pay for this. This provides a tax advantage mechanism for them to pay for those, which stretches their dollars. Number four, it improves transparency. So for public schools that opt in to participate in this program, we're going to know what it costs inside the class. It's going to be classroom-specific costs, and as well as school district-specific costs because of the fully burdened. We're going to actually understand how much it takes to educate a student in any given school or school district. And number five, it empowers parents. So ultimately, this is about putting the parents in charge of how the funds in these accounts are expended. So it's big on parental empowerment. Now let's look at what's not in the bill. Number one, it doesn't require parents to contribute to an enhanced MESP account at all. The opportunity is there, but they are not required to contribute at all. Number two, it does not require parents to open an account. They don't have to participate if they don't want to. And number three, the same thing applies to schools. If they don't want to participate, they don't have to participate in this either. For those that do, it's an opportunity to get additional funding. Number four, it does not replace any existing public funding mechanisms. Doesn't touch any of that. This is purely supplemental funding for the schools that comes from sources that are not taxpayer sources. They're not taxes. This is coming from third-party private sources. And when you have student-specific account, it encourages it. So one of the claims that I've heard some opponents have with the bill is that some parents can't afford to contribute. And I just want to be clear that the funding sources that are proposed in this model are already existing in communities that have parents that are struggling to make ends meet. Matter of fact, this proposal and this mechanism here was actually the source of the idea for this comes from schools like Detroit Cristo Rey and Cornerstone Schools in Detroit. They have people that are providing money into student-specific accounts directly to the school. All we're doing is making sure that the parents have a say in this matter when it comes to public school funding. So this is really an example of the private schools they always struggle with finding ways to provide more money for the schools. They're actually going off and helping the public schools, even though they receive no financial benefit from this program whatsoever. These student-specific accounts enable more dollars for schools without increasing taxes. And unfortunately, some people have their preferred way of going off and getting additional funding for schools is only via taxpayer-based revenue sources. And that's because they are controlled by government. And fundamentally, this flips that on the heels and says, no, we're going to actually control these funding mechanisms. By the control of that goes to the parents. So the fact is that these bills open up the opportunity for additional dollars, they improve transparency, and they empower our parents for a lot of the educational choices that they have to make for their students. So with that being said, that I encourage all my colleagues to support